Okay, usually when a new Apple product comes out, you are very interested in what I will personally be buying. And I guess I should be kind of grateful for that you're that interested in what I'm buying. And I guess it's only kind of fair. Like, I'm constantly giving out buying advice and buying recommendations. So it only makes sense that you're going to ask yourself, okay, Greg, what are you buying? What model are you buying? What sort of configuration are you getting? And, that's fair. So I do usually make videos telling you when I'm buying a certain product, what configuration I am getting, and why I'm buying that specific model. So it's only fair again to tell you when I'm probably not going to be buying something. And that's the case for this video here, because as I'm sitting here right now, I do not plan on buying, or I guess I should say upgrading to the M2 Pro or M2 Max MacBook Pro, because I kind of will be buying one because I am going to be reviewing it for the channel, but I'm not planning on using that model that I will be purchasing for review. And I do have to buy them because Apple does not send me review units. And obviously, I want to give you an updated review on the new M2 Max chip and just see how powerful that is, because that is still exciting to me. But I am not planning on speccing that thing out for personal use. And listen, this isn't a condemnation of these new M2 Pro or M2 Max MacBook Pros. I could probably get a lot more views if I started off this video with like an angry face and going, I'm not buying any of these Macs, they're not good. I don't think that. I think that these new MacBook Pros look fine. I'm sure they're going to be great. I love my current MacBook Pro, and these are only better versions of them. And I think it's fair that Apple introduced a spec bump update to these MacBook Pros after the massive update that they gave us with these M1 Pro and M1 Max models. So I think they're great laptops. If you're going to be buying one, I'm not telling you not to buy one. I'm just saying that I personally don't plan on upgrading to one. So let me walk you through that process on why I'm not upgrading to the latest MacBook Pros. And it was a process. It was a decision-making process. I did consider it, but ultimately I thought, I'm gonna skip this time. And that's kind of rare for me because usually I do buy the latest models because I do wanna use them throughout the year and kind of see how they operate. And usually, especially back on the Intel days, I did run into kind of pain points over the years where it's like, okay, this Mac is starting to, I didn't put enough memory into it, or I didn't put enough storage into it. But this last time, for this MacBook Pro, I configured it pretty well. So let me walk you through this decision-making process. So the first thing when a new Apple product comes out is it's time for me to kind of take stock. Like, did I make the right choice with the certain model I went with? Now, with these MacBook Pros, there's kind of two different models. There's the 14-inch model and the 16-inch model. And this is a good time for me to go, okay, do I still like this smaller size 14-inch model, or should I get a bigger 16-inch model? And I recently just made a video kind of going over why I like this 14-inch model so much, and that is still true. I like that this model, you can basically spec it out to the max configuration, but you still get the smaller 14-inch size. So this is the smallest and most powerful Mac that Apple has ever released, I guess, until the new M2 Max 14-inch MacBook Pro. So that was a decision that I really liked from Apple. On the old Intel days, you could never spec up that older 13-inch model to match the 15-inch model or, again, the 16-inch model. So I am still happy with this 14-inch model that I picked, and I don't feel like I need the 16-inch model. Now, another thing you should ask yourself is there anything wrong with the current configuration you have? And for me, like I said before, when I bought this, I kind of spec'd this thing out. So I got the Max M1 chip with the 32 GPU cores. I got the maximum amount of memory at the time, which was 64 gigabytes. And I even upgraded this with a lot of storage. I put 4 terabytes on it. Honestly, though, the biggest reason I was considering upgrading was because when I got this machine and after I filled the 4 terabytes of storage, I was kind of like, oh no, I should have gotten 8 terabytes of storage, but it wasn't a big enough pain point to me. Eventually, I would have to delete stuff off an 8 terabyte drive too. And, it wasn't worth spending like another $4,000 or $5,000 on a new 14-inch MacBook Pro just to get 4 terabytes of storage when you can just buy external SSDs and kind of solve that yourself. So in terms of my configuration, storage would be the biggest problem, but it's not a big enough problem. But everything else on this machine, just runs great. And it's another, point. You should ask yourself, does my machine run fast enough? And yes, this M1 Max 14-inch MacBook Pro still runs plenty fast. And it's not even just like opening up apps or having like a bunch of different browser tabs open. Like I'm constantly editing 4K video in Final Cut Pro on this machine, constantly editing images, constantly having multiple apps open at once. And as of right now, I just don't feel really any significant performance hits. Obviously, with any Mac that I've owned, there's always the occasional kind of random hiccups and bugs and stuff like that. But in terms of just like raw performance, like this thing can handle pretty much everything I've thrown at it. I mean, it does. It handles everything I've thrown at it to the point where I look at these new M2 Pro and M2 Max machines, and even though they are more powerful than what I have now, I don't think that extra power is really gonna do me any good when I'm not facing major speed hurdles with this machine. Another thing you have to look at is what is new on these newer models. And we kind of went over the specs in them. Obviously, they have the new M2 Pro and M2 Max chip, and that's great. But I just went over how I don't think the additional speed would really help me. But these new Macs, they do have upgrades despite not having major upgrades. Now, obviously, if you've been watching the channel, if you've been watching the rumor videos, you knew to expect a spec bump update. And that's pretty much what we got. So when you're looking at the major design of these new products, they're exactly the same. You put a 14-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro against the M2 Max 14-inch MacBook Pro, put them on a table, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. That means that they have the same great mini LED display at 120 Hertz. They have the same 1080p camera. They have the same keyboard, the same trackpad, the same speakers. Everything about the outward design is the same. And again, I think that's fine. These MacBook Pros were a major upgrade. Apple does not upgrade the external design of these laptops every single year. It's probably going to be quite some time until they do that. And in terms of the feature set, they didn't have to add anything new. These are already so good. So I was not disappointed with the lack of new upgrades. I really just wasn't expecting them for the next iteration of this upgrade. But they did add some helpful internal upgrades here that do make me like a little bit like not salty, just jealous. Like I'm like side-eyeing it still, these new models, and going, maybe that would be nice. So one of those upgrades would obviously be Wi-Fi 6E. I actually have a Wi-Fi 6E router. And when you have a Wi-Fi 6E device with a Wi-Fi 6E router, you're going to get faster internet speeds, especially if you have like a faster connection. I have a gigabit connection at home. So yeah, if I got the new MacBook Pro, I would get faster wireless speeds. I don't use Ethernet when connected to my MacBook Pro. So yeah, that would actually be an upgrade that helps me. And then the bigger upgrade, I think, for a lot of people is going to be this new HDMI port. There's an HDMI 2.1 port inside of the new M2 MacBook Pros. And this HDMI port on the older models is just a 2.0 port. So on the newer ones, you can actually drive an 8K display at 60 Hertz to the HDMI port, which is cool. I don't have an 8K display, but it also means that you can drive faster refresh rate displays on that MacBook Pro. You can go up to 240 Hertz at 4K, which is kind of cool. Now, I don't have a 240 Hertz monitor, but I actually do have like a small 42-inch OLED LG TV that I've kind of sometimes used as an external monitor with this MacBook Pro. And it's kind of cool. Like it's like a really big monitor. But with that new MacBook Pro, I could actually get the 120 Hertz refresh rate that TV has. And that would kind of be nice because it would match the refresh rate that is offered on this MacBook Pro. So they would both be 120 Hertz. I could get that on that new HDMI cable. So those are kind of like the upgrades for it. And again, they are a little bit tempting for me, but they aren't enough to warrant spending so much money on a new model. And by watching this video at this point, you might go, okay, this is not an exciting upgrade for these new MacBook Pros. But I kind of think it is in a way. There's other small improvements. Like I think there's like an additional hour of battery life on the 14-inch and 16-inch model. So that's cool. Even better battery life for these MacBook Pros, which is always welcome. But the M2 Pro and M2 Max chips themselves do fascinate me. This is the first time we are seeing a follow-up to the pro-level chips, right? We got the M2 chip. That was a follow-up to the entry-level M1 chip. This is our follow-up to the pro chips. And on like the Mac side of things, like you can get like a 12-core CPU, like the multi-core performance in that is probably going to be really good. On the GPU side, you're going to get, I think 38 cores on the Max chip if you upgrade that. And then on that bigger Max chip, one of the pain points, like if you're better than me, like if you're a professional watching this video, one of the pain points may have been like memory. Like maybe you need more than 64 gigabytes of memory. I think that's very, 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 very rare, but I'm sure there are people out there who could always use more memory. And now on these newer laptops, you're going to be able to configure that up to 96 gigabytes of unified memory. So that might actually be a big pain point fix for some users, which kind of brings me to this point of the video. I'm telling you why I'm not upgrading, but should you upgrade? And maybe you should, because not everyone is like me, right? If you are smart, you probably waited out the first generation of Apple Silicon. Now, there was nothing wrong with the first generation of Apple Silicon. These were great products, but usually general buying advice whenever there's like a new piece of technology or like a processor change or something that's just like really untested. This was like the first time Apple was making pro-level chips for their MacBooks. The smart decision would probably be, let me wait and see how this plays out. What if it was like a big mistake and like the old Intel MacBook Pros were running faster than these? Thankfully, that wasn't the case. Like these were better in every way in terms of power, in terms of just efficiency draw, like with the chips and stuff. Like these were powerful and very efficient chips. So there was nothing wrong with these, but you may have thought, okay, I'm not going to buy the first iteration. Let me wait for the second generation. Well, this is the second generation, so now is a good time to buy. Also, you might be on like those older Intel MacBook Pros, and I recently made a video kind of going over why I think at this point, if you're on one of those older Intel MacBook Pros, you are really missing out by not going for Apple Silicon. It is quite a game change with these newer Apple Silicon computers. Even if you're getting like an older M1 Mac, they are just so fast, they are so responsive, and again, they are really efficient, leading to not only great battery life in a lot of these laptops, but also usually really good thermals too, to the point where like they don't even heat up that much. I guess that remains to be seen if that's a problem on the M2 Pro or M2 Max chip, but at least for this version, like I have been so happy with the power and the efficiency of these laptops, and also just the general hardware on the newer designs, which is why I'm not upgrading. And that's the video. Like I don't, it wasn't that exciting, but that's the video. And I hope it helped you out in your own decision-making process on whether or not you should buy these new M2 Pro or M2 Max MacBook Pros. Now, listen, I could be totally wrong too. I am, again, planning on buying one to review for the channel. And maybe when I get to that review, the M2 Max is just gonna like blow me away. And there's some like unforeseen thing that I didn't talk about in this video. So, and then I'll have to make another video going, you know what? I was wrong about these MacBook Pros. They're so good and all that stuff. So yeah. So if you want to see if I was wrong, get subscribed to the channel. If you like this video, make sure you give me a like. But most importantly, thank you for watching and let me know in the comments below. Do you plan on purchasing any of these new MacBook Pros and why? I want to know why. And if you are, I hope it's an exciting upgrade for you. All right. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care, everyone.